Welcome to Unplugged Live with Dr. Diane Smith-Clark, PhD. Get ready to get inspired by the stories of overcoming life's challenges to bring change and transformation. Here's Dr. Diane.
Hello and a great God bless you. I'm Dr. Diane Clark and I am here again tonight to get you unplugged. Thank you so much for joining us. And listen, I would like for you to like, share our page, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can stay abreast of important information concerning the mental health space. Coming in September 30th, we're going to have a grand celebration, Motown Review, where we are honoring grandparents who are currently raising their grandchildren. We have special monetary gifts, other surprises and gifts that we're going to be giving away. So if you are a grandparent or you want to nominate a grandparent, you can go to my website, drdianeclark.org. That's drdianeclark.org. And there you will find the form to either register as a grandparent or nominate a grandparent that you would like to see honored on September 30th, 2023. Now, this big event is coming off at the Social Event Center, 644 Cesare Boulevard. And it's going to be an awesome time. We have a live band. We have DJ Charles. Jazzco is going to be there. And we want you to be there. So everyone is welcome to that event. We're just highlighting grandparents raising grandchildren. Come and help us make that a successful event for them and for yourselves. It's going to be fun. All right, I wanted to keep you abreast of what's going on with us. And today we're going to be talking about a very sensitive subject because I was reading some statistics that almost 70% of seniors or people aging past 55 and on are experiencing forms of Alzheimer's and dementia. So I have a very special guest who is a psychologist that deals with this disease, and I'm going to bring her on and she's going to introduce herself to you, and we're going to give you some information about dementia, and if you're a caregiver, how you can best keep your own sanity as you are taking care of others. Help me welcome Dr. Janine Hyman. Good evening, doctor. How are you?
Good evening, doctor. How are you? Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Oh, good. I'm excited to have you. Listen, I've run into so many people who are experiencing Alzheimer's. I thought it didn't happen until your 60s, but some of these people are 50, 53, and they're saying they've been diagnosed with that. And their parts of their memory, short term, is just gone. You know, they'll be in a conversation with me, and then maybe the next day they'll say, well, what did we talk about? Mm-hmm. And so, because at first I thought they were teasing, mm-hmm. but then after they really didn't remember, I had to really refresh them on what we were doing. So I would like for you to speak to our viewing audience about dementia, about Alzheimer's, after you introduce yourself, and how to recognize some of the signs, symptoms, so people can get help as soon as possible.
Okay. Again, thanks for having me. I am Bishop S. Janine Hyman. I am a psychologist, also a former professor of psychology, Department Chair of Arts and Sciences, in several schools, from state schools to private-owned schools to nonprofits to HBCUs. And have worked in a variety of capacities as sometimes a clinical director of mental health programs, executive director, and of course, I am a bishop, as they say in the Lord's church. Look, somebody's church, okay? And have been in this preaching ministry since 1981. And so between the education piece, the therapeutic piece, and the ministry piece, I have just about seen it all in some capacity or another. And being the kind of person I am, with the mentors that I have kept for 20 and 30 years, I have become caregiver to some of them. And even as I have parents who are 85 years old, grandparents lived until they're almost 100. And so we have seen the dementia, the cognitive decline, just about in every arena. And you're right, Dr. Clark, it is not just limited to people over a certain age. There is a certain amount of what we call cognitive decline that is sometimes associated with normal aging. When it is your regular, what we just call regular cognitive decline, the person is still able to do basic life functions. It may take them longer to do or longer to figure it out. But when it goes beyond what we would call normal forgetting for that age group or that age range, and it begins to impair daily activities, procedural memory. Um, Procedural memory is how to do things, how to write bills, how to write checks, how to answer emails, um, how to drive the car. It affects, again, as she said, short term memory primarily, so that normal things that you do are interrupted because you don't have that memory stored in the short term area of the brain. Um, and so once it begins to impair or inhibit um, natural everyday functioning, then we can reasonably say this is not just old age. Okay. In fact, it does tend to worsen with age. Dementia affects millions of people, and it gets more common as you grow older. For instance, my parents are 85. About one third of all people 85 and older have some form of dementia, and that may not be due to normal aging. Uh, there are some people who live into their 90s with no signs of it at all. What we are finding out, Dr. Clark, is that there's more than one type and form of dementia, and we are looking at it because it is increasing the prevalence of it, the severity of it, and now even the age of onset is younger. And so what we're really not looking at is what is causing this. Many people may not know this, Dr. Clark, that the people who are most affected by dementia is people of color, at least in this state or in the United States of America. Blacks are said to be 13-14% of the population. I still don't believe that. But that's what they say. All right. But about 14% of black people in America over the age of 60, just 65. Okay. That's like getting in my age range, have Alzheimer's compared to only 10% of white people, according to the Centers for Disease Control. So we're getting it earlier. We're getting it more. And then the disparity may be more than that because many times we are not correctly diagnosed. That's just a problem in the medical and mental health profession. In those fields is the underdiagnosis. It's uncanny, the underdiagnosis and the misdiagnosis of African Americans medically and in terms of things that deal with cognition and memory and cognitive abilities. Just bad diagnosis, no diagnosis, or misdiagnosis. So the disparity between blacks and whites with regards to things like Alzheimer's, things like dementia, is probably bigger than what's reported.
That is so sad that that is the case because so many diseases have been assigned to us as people of color. And when you study psychology, led me to study deliverance.
Okay.
And I married the two. A lot of people are not safe with that, but I married the two because I found out from experience that some of the things that we really need to be healed and delivered from show up as mental decline, shows up in our physical bodies. For instance, the sugar diabetes that runs rampant among our people when you study it on the deliver side, it comes from unresolved hurt, comes from bitterness and lack of self-love. And, when you put it that simple, you're giving me something I can go and look in my life and see if those things are happening with me, make adjustments to it, get help. That's why we have counselors and therapists, and help from that, so that I don't have to have the disease of diabetes. And then there are cases where there is something malfunction in your Isles of Langerhans or in your liver where there's a problem. But most diseases, sickness, comes from stress or comes from leftover trauma, emotional abuse, abandonment, and things that we have not had an opportunity to walk through and heal.
Absolutely. I have this thing. Actually, I got it from Dr. Cindy Trim. I heard it once and I ran with it. But our issues show up in our tissues.
Yeah.
So there is an inextricable interrelationship between the body, the psyche, and the spirit.
Yes.
One cannot be overly impacted without impacting the other. And so many times we don't see or we don't examine the relationship between the three. When you do that and you put it in the context of what we're putting in our body. When I go to Africa and places like that, it could be food from the same thing, the same food chain. I remember when I went there, they said, Porcel, do you want some Coke? And I said, well, no, I'm a Pepsi lady, but I'm trying not to drink that anymore. I'm trying to get the liver, because I'll just be popping Pepsis, No, this is good Coke. I said, no, me don't like no Coke. And they say, you need to drink this Coke. You're going to like it. And so, I drank the Coke. I was like, this tastes better than Pepsi. Why y'all Coke tastes different than ours? And they said the things that your government allows in the food and in the things you Americans consume, our government here would never allow. So things may taste different here from the same manufacturer because our government does not allow that toxicity. Your government does. And so when we add that, what we're putting in the body, how much the soil is raped because we violate the principle of Shabbat or of Sabbath, of letting that soil rest every 7th year. We're robbing it of nutrients and we're putting steroids and sugar in everything so that people will be addicted to it and buy it. So when you do that, you add our trauma, our personal trauma, our own family dysfunction.
Yes.
You add with that a toxic culture that really is against who African Americans authentically are. And then you add with that 400 years of oppression, where now the chicken has come home to roost. Now all of that trauma has traveled in the DNA. It is called epigenetics. So that trauma, group trauma, social trauma, oppression, then our individual family trauma as a result of our oppression has all traveled in the genome. It's traveled in the DNA, and it has changed the way in which the DNA expresses itself. When you look at it's amazing that we can do anything. And so when we look at even in the United States, that higher rates of dementia among African, American, and Hispanics, when you put in all forms of dementia, we have it at about half the rate as white America. So you can't dismiss the trauma that travels in the gene. You can't dismiss generations and years of oppression. You cannot dismiss racism, sexism, classism, all of these isms that we still deal with. And so we have to take a different approach than we've taken, Dr. Clark, in terms of preserving ourselves as people of a diaspora. The church got to do a little different, because you can't just call Jesus. All right, these folks love Jesus and they got dementia. My mama loved God.
Okay.
But at 85, she's got dementia.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it doesn't, our love for God doesn't interrupt what is going on in the psyche and what is being expressed in the DNA. So we have to change this thing, and we got to look at deliverance on all fronts.
On all fronts. I totally agree with you, because we've been programmed. Well, religion has programmed us.
Yes, ma'am.
For instance, we used to tell people when we go soul winning, that once Jesus touched your life, everything's going to be different. But we didn't know how to explain that difference to them. So they came thinking, wow, this is going to, things are going to be better and da 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 da. But there's a process to the betterment of salvation. There's a growth process. There's an emptying process. And religion did not prepare us for the reality of salvation. The reality of salvation is that it's free, but the maintenance is costly.
Yes, indeed.
It has to have your buy-in, and it has to be 100%. You can't be flaky in and out. You have to make that decision and then follow a course of life improvement as it pertains to the scriptures, and not just what mama and them did, and that's what the auntie and them did. And I came from a line of preachers, but that does not qualify you to be healthy mentally, socially, or emotionally.
That's right.
And when you find you're deficient, is best to seek help. Do not be afraid to reach out to coaches, counselors, therapists, because they can help you with the genetic sensations and things that we're experiencing, because it's undeniable the way we were raised is totally different from the way our counterparts were raised, and we can't expect to get the same results. Spiritually, I teach people, okay, they're trying to be Jews, and I said, you'll never be a Jew. Jesus didn't come even to make the Jews. He came to make a new body called the body of Christ. That's going to be all race, all nation, all culture. So why are you trying to be a Jew? You are a Gentile. You've been redeemed and brought into a new body. You need to study what that new body is. So the Jews had 4,000 years, sis, of being trained by God, how to eat, how to live, how to walk, how to worship. He trained them. The Gentiles were over in another land serving however many gods they wanted, with no training as to God being king over the earth, and that he had a kingdom and not just a church building. I'm not gonna, that's my soapbox.
I don't subscribe to I ain't no Gentile. I let y'all be Gentile. I ain't no Gentile. I let y'all be Gentiles. All right.
I'm a new breed.
Yes, indeed. I do believe there is a biblical and a spiritual Israel, and pointing evidence is beginning to show that many of the people of the diaspora who came from West Africa were indeed Hebrews and Israelites. So I think that's why people are going back to it. But even if you don't balance it, all you did was the extreme of what you just left. It's the same thing.
You know what, Dr. Hyman?
It doesn't transform who you are.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And it's not even what they're going back to is the revised Jewish culture. They're not going all the way back to the original.
Yeah, they can't get back to Hebrew culture without studying their authentic African culture. And so that for us, because we are Kofi Cambon, he's deceased now, considered one of the fathers of Black psychology. A former colleague wrote a book, The Cultural Misorientation of the African American or of the Negro, or something like that, cultural misorientation. And he even looks at cultural misorientation as we assimilate into anything Western, whether it's Christianity, whether it's culture, whether it's education. This cultural misorientation now has caused us to be pathological, because we are inauthentically who God created us to be as a people. And so Christianity can do that. Judaism, as we know it, primarily Western, it can do that. So we have a variety of factors that we are up against religiously, economically, socioeconomically, educationally, how we have been miseducated through religion, through the educational system, because whoever owns the system owns the narrative. And when
Yes.
somebody owns the narrative, they can hijack your narrative, put theirs in it, redefine you. And so you have all of this working against who you authentically are. And so it's no wonder that when we look at half of our people over 65, 40 to 43%, we believe have some form of dementia or on stage or beginning stage dementia or
Right.
cognitive decline, which for many people kind of eventuates into that. And so what we need to study and what we haven't studied is how these 90-year-olds, like my mentor who just passed less than a year ago, had almost no decline in cognitive functioning. And she left here at 94 because she chose to. But she was authentically who she was. She was authentically a sage, authentically prophetic, not a Christian, authentically Black, and authentically in her what she was created to do, as an educator, a politician, and a clinical psychologist of her time. Such a trailblazer. And so she didn't get any of it because she was fulfilling her life's calling and became true to herself, willing to take the persecution, the rejection, the threats, because number one, she's female. Number two, she's Black. Number three, she's genius. Number four, she can see. You know, and so you all of that. And so those who do that usually have great social networks. They continue to find purpose and usefulness and helpfulness in it. But something that you said, I think that we have not looked at enough, Dr. Clark. I want to go back to that. Is the connection between trauma and dementia? I don't think we looked at it because number one, we're not going to volunteer to be no guinea pigs because we got a bad history of you practicing on us in our country, and we have a little fear of it. You know, that you'll slip us a little something, you know, or that you'll exploit the data. But I don't think we can separate those things that are still down in there that we had to keep moving because, you know, okay, the husband left. Okay, we got to keep moving. We got children to raise. Okay, he not working or she not working. Okay, we got children to raise. Okay, we know we done bought Uncle Pookie in the house because we need Uncle Pookie check and these children need some discipline. And Uncle Pookie done mess with the children, and we have to overlook that to keep the family together and to keep going. The things that we have had to encounter, from beatings to lynchings to profiling to disparities in wage disparities, they are still there. Housing disparities, they are still there. The wage gap in terms of median income for Black families is less than 18,000, but for white families, the median wealth is it's about 175,000.
Yeah.
You're talking, we got to live with this overcharged, over interest, and underpaid and overworked. All of these things are working against us because number one, they are realities, and number two, we have not sat with one another, with God, and with historical text, the scripture, to see what is, like you say, what's the standard for us? What's the dietary law for us? Because we're not built like other people. You can't use the same rubrics and measurements to maintain people or to even heal people that you use to oppress them and kill them. And so we got nothing but Jesus, and it's not working. It's not working.
Well, you know what? Technically, Doc, it's working because the Bible says the interest of His word gives us light. So it's illuminating us, and God is releasing voices in the earth to help upgrade the education of our people. I experienced something this last weekend that was very disturbing to me. And I should have gotten the officer's badge number, but it was a traumatic experience for me. I was entering into a place and I fell. Now, I can't tell you how. I didn't trip over anything. I was just walking and I stepped up on the curb to go make my entrance, and I fell back. And when I realized I was falling, I kind of turned myself so I wouldn't hit my head. And the policemen were already there on the property dealing with another issue. The black policeman walked over to where I was and said, "What you down there for? Are you drunk?"
Oh no. Oh,
And
no.
I was too.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
I was supposed to have a different response, but I'm hurting. I'm down on the ground trying to. He didn't say, "Can I help you up? What ma'am, are you all right?" He said, "Are you drunk?" I could not believe.
Not even can I help you up. You on the ground.
And he went back on to what he was doing. And it was some of the saints that were coming behind me that helped me gather myself and get up to go on into the place. I could not believe that. It was humiliating. I was in pain because if later found out I broke my foot. The fall, I broke my foot, bruised my hip bone, and sprung my ankle in that one fall.
Ooh.
His account of it was, she must have been drunk. How low is that in your own thinking? And you're supposed to be of like mind, or so to speak, of like psychology, that you would respect black women. But that's all you could say. Are you, lady, you drunk?
See, that's another whole trauma right there.
Yeah, I didn't get his badge number because I really wanted to report him to his sergeant.
Right.
That was very inappropriate. Whether I was black or white, that was still inappropriate.
And whether you were drunk or not, that's inappropriate. You're on the ground. I'm about to get mad.
No, don't get mad.
It's a normal response.
Right.
It's a normal response to mistreatment.
Yeah.
That was dehumanizing.
Yes, it was.
Dehumanizing. We're still taking that mess. You should not be bothered with this. You know, you're a senior stateswoman now. You know, you doctor. You shouldn't have to be. You pay the price not to have to still deal with this, but clearly we are. And so we know this is still happening because it happened to you. And yes, it makes me angry. It's supposed to. That's a normal response to apostolic and prophetic people who are wired this way. We hate injustice.
Yes.
It sends us into a tizzy. And so when you look at all of this, you know, the fall itself, the scariness of it, you know, the contusions and what have you to your body, even the trauma of, okay, let me be careful because I can't sustain another fall. That all of that, and then you couldn't even get no help from a public servant. Right.
You know, but these are the things, believe it or not, that run rampant in our community, and those things often help if you are having dementia, or you are having pre-Alzheimer's. These kinds of things can help escalate you.
There you go.
To a decline. That's why I brought it up, because how I process it from that point is going to determine a lot of the quality of my life and how I process things. I was already injured from a fall. I've been working overtime not to fall again. And
exactly, me too.
And then bam,
that fear is there. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so I'm like, I've got fall phobia. You know, I don't want to fall anymore. You know, it's like, is it not because I'm getting older? What is all this? The first time I was falling, it was an issue in my back that I had to have 2 spinal fusions.
Good Lord.
So, you know, and I thought that cleared that up and I was off and running. But it just goes to show, depending on stress,
yes, ma'am,
can bring on so many ailments in your physical body.
Yes, ma'am.
I got to have you on again. We got to talk more about this. Maybe I'll do a part 2 to this. Well, depending on your availability.
Sure.
But I do want my audience to be aware that there's help for you. And if you're a caregiver and you're taking care perhaps of a parent, or you're dealing with a sibling, someone who's suffering with dementia, Alzheimer's, then you need a counselor. You need therapy so that you're not overwhelmed. Dr. Hyman, just take a few minutes and speak to the caregivers, because the caregiver is just as involved in the disease as the person who has it.
Okay, dementia, when one has it, everybody has it. Okay. The whole family has it. The community has it. You're looking at and dealing with a decline in memory, changing in their thinking skills. Their judgment is terrible. We call it, they ain't got no filter. Well, that part of the brain that is responsible for inhibiting certain things is not functioning right. So anything may come out that mouth. Poor judgment, poor reasoning skills, making themselves vulnerable to other people, like getting money from them, scamming them, using them, taking things out of the house. You'll see a decreased focus and attention on their ability to stay on task, changes in language. You will see changes in personality and behavior. And many times, all of that hostility, even that goes there, or stuff that was been there all the time, as Dr. Clark talked about, will be aimed at the person that is the caregiver. They may say horrible things to you. And so you got to ask God to protect your heart. You got to understand that this is this syndrome. We don't even call it a disease. It's a syndrome that is degenerative. It gets worse with age. They may know you today and not know you tomorrow. They're going to ask you the same thing 100 times. I don't do well with that. I need a psychologist just for that. I don't do well with grilling me and asking me the same. Oh my, I don't have time. So the vitriol that you may get, sometimes they get they're cussed. You be like, oh my God, you cussing. It's coming from a part of the brain where we've been able to suppress and inhibit that. That part is not working. And understand that Alzheimer's is a type of dementia, not the other way around. There are several types of dementia. We can talk about that later because they act differently. Things that can contribute to it, like blood pressure medication, diabetes, all of these things. And so when you're the caregiver, the psychological impact upon you is great, because you begin grieving the person who looks like that's still Big Mama, but Big Mama is acting like somebody else, and you're watching certain types of skills decline. And if you're not careful, you will try to control that so you can make them who they were to you, and you're gonna wear yourself out, and they're gonna wear themselves out. So if you can get somebody, if they even let you bring anybody in the house, somebody in there, another family member, to relieve you. Take time to go out in nature, even if it's just 30 or 40 minutes, to get sun, to be around trees. Take time to do stuff silly that you like. You are not abandoning them if you take some time off. You're going to have to do it. And, people that you can talk to, if you can increase your social network and talk it through, particularly with other people in your age group, their mamas and daddies act cuckoo too. Just sharing those stories. And don't be afraid, as our Dr. Clark has said, to get help. There are also agencies around you that will provide respite care for you, that will provide groups for you, support groups for you, so that you will know what to look for, what's personal to you, what's not personal, what is common. It's common for them to go off on the person that's there, or for them to become paranoid and accuse you of stealing and all that kind of stuff. So as my father said, consider the source and learn to guard your heart. Take frequent breaks. Find out what resources are available to you for respite care or to help assist, so you can take a break, and then spend time in prayer, time in nature, and time doing fun stuff. Okay? Don't let your business go lacking because you're taking care of theirs, because many times the caregiver go first.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Hyman, for accepting my invitation. We've got to do a part 2.
Yes, ma'am. Let's do it.
So, when we get off the air, we need to look at a schedule to really go deeper, because I believe there's some people who are watching the show who are going to be helped by the information that you're giving. Because often when you're taking care of a loved one, especially, and you take time for yourself, thoughts run through your mind, oh, I'm being selfish, they really need me. But you can't help them if you are broken down yourself.
Absolutely.
And there has to be a better way for our caregivers to operate in life so that they don't lose the totality of themselves in a situation that's temporary. Long-term temporary, but temporary. Thank you so much.
My
And I'm
pleasure.
going to have you on again, rest assured.
Amen.
Thank you so much for tuning in. That was Dr. Janine Hyman, a psychologist from Detroit,
Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia. What did
Yeah,
I
I just
say?
left
Michigan.
Detroit.
Okay, okay, that's okay. Richmond, Virginia. So we were grateful to have her on. And listen, we're going to bring part 2 back, so stay tuned. Don't forget, September 30th, we're going to be doing the Motown Review, honoring grandparents who are raising their grandchildren. Now, if you are a grandparent and you want to participate, or you want to nominate a grandparent, you can go to my website, drdianeclark.org. That's drdianeclark.org. And there you will find a registration form so that you may enter to be recognized at that grand event. It's going to be great. The tickets are on sale now. You can get your ticket from Ticketmasters or Eventbrite to be a part of that celebration on September 30th. Currently, we're looking for the grandparents to honor. So again, if you're a grandparent or you want to nominate a grandparent that's raising their own grandchildren, you may do so at our website, drdianeclark.org. Fill out the paperwork. Let's make it a great event for them. We'll see you next Thursday night to help you get unplugged.
Thanks for joining us for Unplugged Live with Dr. Diane Smith-Clark, PhD, helping to bring change and transformation in the mental health space within the church community. Dr. Diane wants to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, guest recommendations, or program topic ideas, visit DianeUnplugged.com and click the Contact Us link. Dr. Diane also appreciates your prayers and your financial support. You can give online at DianeUnplugged.com and select Donate. If your business or ministry organization is interested in sponsoring this program, you can go to DianeUnplugged.com and click the Contact Us link. Unplugged Live is on all the social media platforms. Just search Dr. Diane Smith-Clark, follow, and subscribe. Unplugged Live with Dr. Diane Smith-Clark, PhD. Healthy mind, wealthy life.